said it goes like this.
You do it like
Kicking hard from the back to the front to the back. Club is in the house, causing a heart attack. Kicking hard from the back to the front to the back. Club is in the house, causing a heart attack.
I'm bigger and bolder and rougher and tougher. In other words, sucker, there is no other. I'm the one and only dominator.
Club is in the house, causing a heart attack.
WWF Over The Edge in Your House took place on the 31st of May 1998 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Just under 10,000 fans showed up for the event, while an estimated 203,000 fans bought the show on pay-per-view. Tonight, Stone Cold Steve Austin defends his WWF title once again against Dude Love. Only this time, we've got Gerald Brisco as the timekeeper, Pat Patterson as the ring announcer, and Vince McMahon as special guest referee. An unnamed individual may also volunteer to ensure there's no funny business from Vinnie Mac and his corporate stooges. We have also got The Nation vs DX, Kane vs Vader, and a whole lot more. So let's get started with our opening tag team match. It's the DOA vs LOD 2000. Like every tag team in WWF, the DOA have been getting the better of Hawk and Animal over these past few weeks, but the Legion of Doom got themselves some backup. Newcomer Darren Drozdorf. Droz comes to the ring with Hawk and Animal to make sure there's no interference from Chains tonight in this Over The Edge tag team matchup. All 6 men fight at the opening bell, but Chains and Droz end up staying on the outside. Animal hits 8-Ball with a jumping shoulder tackle, and he also performs a dragon screw. We don't see that too often from Animal. Skull and Hawk then tag in, and again it's Hawk who begins letting his team down by taking a lot of offense from his opponent. He gets hit with a sidewalk slam and this pretty awful pile driver right here. It's probably the one occasion where Hawk was absolutely right to no-sell it and hit his opponent with a clothesline. The LOD do a little double teaming in the corner, and Animal comes back in with a devastating chin lock. In comes Hawk again to do a little damage, and while he started off pretty well, he also missed this diving clothesline and he fell out of the ring. This gives Chains an opportunity to attack Hawk, so Droz runs over and a fist fight breaks out. Hawk resumes the match and the DOA get the better of the Road Warrior. Droz and Sonny try to get the crowd into it as 8-Ball and Skull do a little double teaming, while Animal does his partner absolutely no favours by distracting the referee. Hawk gets completely annihilated. It's all building up to the hot tag, and Hawk gets his opportunity when he dodges a middle rope leg drop. Animal comes in and he tries to fire up. He counters a double back suplex with a clothesline. After hitting a back suplex of his own, Skull and 8-Ball decide to pull off a switcheroo, but this time Droz evens the odds by attacking from the apron. Animal hits 8-Ball with a power slam, and LOD 2000 beat the Biker Michael Lackers at Over The Edge 98. If you weren't watching Raw's War every week, you'd think this was fine. If you were watching every Monday night though, you'd already be wishing that this feud was over and done with. Next up, we have a promo from The Rock. The IC champion faces Faarooq later on, but right here, he wants to share his opinion on the beer capital of the world, Old Milwaukee. He says this:
Obviously, you don't become a blue chipper and a champ like The Rock by sucking down beer and stuffing bratwurst down your damn throat every day.
Did someone say Bratwurst?
Oh, big Bratwurst.
Rocky says if he grew up in Milwaukee and he had to marry a bearded lady, then he too would be sucking on a beer like a baby sucks on a pacifier if you smell what the Rock's cooking. And just as Rock was about to leave the ring, Faarooq runs down and he launches an attack. He grabs a chair, Rock takes it away, but the IC champ hits himself in the face when the chair bounces off the top rope. Faarooq then sets Rocky up for a pile driver on the chair, but he accidentally kicks it away, and JR tries to sell it like Rock took all the impact on the steel. The King thankfully corrects JR by saying Faarooq missed. The Nation run down to check on Rock. Jim Ross says the Rock vs Faarooq match is still scheduled for tonight, but the Rock might not be able to compete. Medics then show up to help out the People's Champion, so as it stands, it's not looking too good. Steve Austin's back in the house where Austin 316 was born, and he says he's going to remain champion when the main event's over tonight. The deck may be stacked against Stone Cold, but he's still going to win. In regards to this mystery man who could stand at ringside to make sure Vince doesn't mess around, Austin says no one has volunteered, and that's because everyone's probably afraid of McMahon. Still though, it doesn't matter. Austin has one thing on his mind tonight, and that's making sure he leaves Milwaukee still WWF champion. Steve fucking Blackman finally gets a one-on-one match against Double J Jeff Jarrett, and this should be a cakewalk for the Lethal Weapon. Jarrett's tried to put Steve down with country music, he tried to form an alliance with the giant robot monster, but Double J hasn't been able to keep Steve-O away, and now Jarrett has to pay the ultimate price. Steve intimidates Jarrett by swatting away evil energy and pesky bugs with his glow-in-the-dark saber sticks, and Tennessee's Stagger Lee thinks Jeff should reconsider this match. Blackman just goes to the outside to begin the punishment. Steve destroys Double J before throwing him back in the ring like a little baby. A missile dropkick breaks all of Jarrett's ribs, and Steve's almost cat-like as he gracefully jumps around the ring to perform some forearm shots. God, he's amazing. Unfortunately though, he forgot to tie his boots properly, so Jarrett's able to capitalize when Steve lowers his head. Jarrett struts around the ring like he's someone special, so it's time for the motherfucking chest chop. Steve then knocks Jarrett to the mat by using his big toe, and then Steve sends Jarrett to Deutschland with a German suplex. Jarrett almost gets his neck broke while hung up in the Tree of Woe, and that no good Tennessee Spike Lee tries to swat Blackman away with his hat. Blackman though strikes fear into the heart of T. Lee before hitting Jarrett with a sidekick. Blink and you'll miss it. Lee just can't help himself, he again interferes, so Blackman chases Jarrett's manager around the ring, and this was a mistake. Double J takes advantage by throwing Blackman into the guardrail, and things aren't looking too good right now for our hero and savior. Al Snow's then spotted sitting at the Spanish commentary table. It looks like he's still trying to get that meeting with Vince McMahon. And back in the ring, Steve's turning it all around by planting Jarrett's face into the mat. Steve's awesome, he's a hero and he has superhuman abilities. He can't fly, however. He realizes this when jumping off the middle rope. He tries another high-risk move when he goes for the rare Blackman bomb, but Double J scouts it, and it's at this point where security come to the Spanish announce table to remove Al Snow. Jarrett performs a sleeper, completely forgetting that Blackman doesn't sleep, ever. Blackman returns the favour, Jarrett counters, Double J goes for a suplex, but Blackman counters that too. It's a very back and forth matchup here, so I'd say Steve's only using about 2% of his true abilities tonight. He's totally convinced that he can fly though. He tries once again and it doesn't work out too well, so he gets angry. He wrecks Jarrett with a spinning back kick and a devastating heart-stopping elbow drop, and then we see the motherfucker kick. That should be the match all over, but sweet Tennessee Christopher Lee jumps on the apron and he holds Blackman up for a free shot. Steve moves out of the way, he covers Jarrett, but Double J kicks out. Jarrett then tries to use a saber stick on Blackman, but only Big Stevie Cool knows how to use those bad boys. Jarrett gets whacked, Blackman covers him, but Double J gets a foot on the ropes when Sweet T Lee was late getting over for the spot. Steve goes to the top rope, third time lucky in his quest to learn how to fly in this match perhaps, but we'll never know because Tennessee Tommy Lee hits Blackman with a saber stick and it's all over. Double J wins via pinfall. The match was just okay in my opinion, not bad but nothing to get excited about either. What is exciting though is Stevie getting his hands on Tennessee Lee in the near future. Marc Mero faces a mystery opponent next. Sable had to find someone to fight Marc, and if Marc loses, then Sable's free from Marvelous Marc forever. If Marc wins though, then Sable has to leave WWF forever. Sable comes down to the ring dressed to fight, and she tells Marc there is no mystery opponent. Sable got herself into this mess, so Sable's gonna get herself out of this mess. The match we're gonna get is Marc Mero versus Sable. Mero gets a bit soppy as he wonders what happened to his relationship with Sable. Their marriage is ruined and it's all because of the wrestling business. Mero once dedicated an IC title victory to Sable because he cared about her a lot, and now look at them, Sable's willing to wreck her body just to get away from Marvelous Marc, and that's something Mero can't let her do. So Marc says he'll give Sable her freedom, he's gonna do the right thing. He tells the timekeeper to ring the bell and he lays himself down in the middle of the ring. Sable looks down at her husband in this kind gesture that he's put forth. She covers Marc and f*** you Sable. Marc gets the 1, 2, 3 and bye bye Sable. Marvelous Marc celebrates like he won the main event at WrestleMania, and he tells Sable to get out of the World Wrestling Federation for good. Sable walks away, Mero continues to celebrate, and that's the match over. Backstage, Sable says she should have known better. She thanks her fans for all the support, and she says goodbye forever. The Rock's got a neck brace on and he's in a lot of pain. Doc Hendricks can't get an interview, but he does say that Commissioner Slaughter said if Rock doesn't defend his IC title tonight, then the Great One will get stripped of the championship. Back in the arena, fans were treated to an unadvertised 3-on-2 match, Kaientai versus Taka and Bradshaw. The Kaientai lads have been seriously impressive so far, and Dick Togo had a great little match against Taka this past week on Raw, but here Togo, Teo and Funaki got to team up in a handicap match. Bradshaw and Taka worked well together too, with Bradshaw throwing the light heavyweight champion onto Kaientai at the opening bell. Funaki, Teo and Togo all took turns at destroying Taka afterwards, but the babyfaces got a break when Bradshaw slammed Teo on the outside and Taka performed a moonsault on Funaki. Back in the ring, Taka took a great looking double underhook suplex from Teo, and Togo followed up with a top rope corkscrew attack. We then got to see an awesome assisted DDT from Teo and Funaki, and this got followed up with a swanton bomb from Togo. I said this on Reliving the War, but these three guys were definitely fun to watch. It's a shame they are just remembered now for the Val Venus storyline and Bruce Pritchard saying "indeed" when they cut promos. Anyway, Bradshaw gets a hot tag and everyone gets booted in the face. A low blow stuns Bradshaw for a moment though, and Kaientai are able to pose on the big man, but Justin Hawk fires back with more big boots and a stiff clothesline. Taka tags in, we see the Michinoku driver, Teo and Funaki break it up, and Taka takes a choke slam. Dick Togo then lands a senton bomb and Kaientai win the match. I enjoyed this one just because I thought Kaientai brought something new to the table. I'd honestly forgotten how good they were in these kind of multi-man matches. After the match, we see Sable leaving the arena. Maybe Mero's gonna find himself a new valet on Raw's War tomorrow night. Faarooq makes his way to the ring for his Intercontinental Championship match, but there's no sign of The Rock. The Great One's music plays a few times, but he's too injured to come to the ring. When you think about it, this is all Faarooq's own fault really, but still, Commissioner Slaughter comes down and he gives Rock a 10 count. If the champ doesn't show up, then Faarooq's getting the IC title. Rock comes out still wearing his neck brace, but Faarooq doesn't care a single bit. Rock gets attacked before he even makes it all the way down, and Faarooq removes his neck brace before the bell rings. When it gets inside the ropes, Faarooq hits Rock with the brace before landing 2 clotheslines, and Rock decides he's gonna nope out and leave the match. He might as well just get himself counted out. Faarooq follows the champ and Rock gets attacked on the rampway. The challenger throws Rock back in the ring, but it's Rock who manages to put Faarooq on the mat with a clothesline. Rocky chokes his opponent, he lands a few elbows while Faarooq's draped over the apron. Faarooq fights back, but he ends up taking a back elbow and a body slam. And then we see the people's elbow. That neck looks absolutely fine at this point. Rock lays it in the corner, but Faarooq replies by slamming Rocky's head on the canvas. We then see a headbutt from the former leader of the nation, but Rock gets up and he plants his opponent with a DDT, only scoring a 2 count. The match then comes to a pretty abrupt end when Faarooq lands a spine buster. The referee then counts to 3, but Rock had a foot on the bottom rope. Faarooq protests the referee's decision not to end the match right here, and this conversation leads to Rocky trying to get in a cheap shot. Faarooq sees it coming, but Rock still manages to pin Faarooq while using the ropes for leverage. The Rock leaves Over the Edge, still IC champion. After the bout, Rock takes a Dominator followed by another pile driver. The Nation then run down to attack Faarooq, but D-Generation X show up to even the odds. Remember, DX faced the Nation a little later on. I really dislike this IC title match and the outcome. These two deserve better after the long storyline they had that went all the way back to late 1997. Rock and Faarooq aren't to blame here, but for their first singles match since Rock took over the Nation, this felt really underwhelming. Next up, Kane takes on Vader. The loser has to unmask in the middle of the ring. High stakes because we might get to see what Vader looks like underneath that mask. Vader just recently came back to WWF after getting his head caved in by Kane and his big old wrench at No Way Out. So Vader's got a score to settle tonight at Over the Edge. It starts with a good old-fashioned slugfest and Kane gets the better of Vader. At the opposite side of the ring, Vader takes a clothesline as Jerry Lawler legitimately wonders what Vader looks like underneath his mask. Granted, he wants to know if Vader has any scars, but come on. Vader tries to use his mask to put Kane down and he's able to do it on the second attempt. He fails to suplex the Big Red Machine though, but a few shots to the back of the head keeps Vader in it. Kane's daddy, Paul Bearer, sweats it out at ringside, and the King thinks Kane probably looks a lot like his dirty old dad. Kane gets floored with a short arm clothesline, but he comes back with one of his own. The Devil's favourite demon body slams Vader like he's nothing at all, and then Kane takes to the skies for a diving clothesline. At this point, Vader's struggling to get into the match. He takes a big boot, another clothesline, and Kane chokes Vader out while the big man's on the mat. A Vader chant can be heard in the audience as another slugfest breaks out in the ring. Not sure if this slugfest was intentional or if their timing was all messed up, but it goes down to the mat where Kane pulls off a devastating and rarely seen eye stretcher special, and Jim Ross reminds fans that Earl Hebner's in the ring officiating this match. Hebner hasn't been seen since before WrestleMania 14. Vader then takes a chokeslam, he rolls under the bottom rope and he checks under the ring for something. He's only gone and found himself a big old wrench, and so it's payback time. Kane takes multiple shots here, and this should really be the end of the match. Back in the ring, Vader pulls off a corner charge attack followed by a stiff clothesline, and Vader then puts it all on the line when he goes up for a moonsault. The crowd pop as Vader makes his way up the ropes, but Vader misses his target and Kane wins the match after a tombstone. Paul Bearer gets in the ring as Kane removes Vader's mask. Kane then puts the mask over his daddy's head and Paul transforms into the man they call Vader. The heels leave the ring and then Vader cuts that infamous promo where he says he got his butt whipped. Vader time is probably over and he calls himself a fat piece of shit. Something was definitely up here because from this point on, Vader goes on quite the losing streak. I read somewhere that Vince wanted Vader to lose weight while the big man was out of action and Vader didn't do it. Bruce Pritchard said that the Vader time is over and the comments about his weight were actually written by Vince himself, and it was supposed to be a way for Vader to get some sympathy, a way to make him more endearing. And if that was the case, then boy did they ever miss the mark. Plus, that doesn't explain why he went on a losing streak with absolutely no storyline after cutting this promo. They certainly weren't trying to get sympathy on Vader when he was jobbing out to Bradshaw, for example. Pritchard said Vader's delivery was wrong during this promo too, and he was supposed to be more dejected than angry. But whatever the case may be, the promo was all over the place. Vader never explained why he cut the promo the way he did, but I always found it sad that this absolute monster was portrayed like this. Thankfully though, Vader became a monster once again when he left WWF to go back to Japan. The WWF bring out Mad Dog Vachon and Milwaukee's own The Crusher to recognise their achievements in pro wrestling. Michael Cole presents both men with plaques. Mad Dog brings up the fact that everyone thinks Luna Vachon's his daughter, but it's really his niece. Thanks for that factoid there, Mad Dog. And Jerry Lawler's already losing patience at this segment. Before The Crusher gets a chance to speak, the King gets in the ring. He says this is 1998, not 1958, and he then turns his attention to Mad Dog Vachon and the fact that Maurice only has one leg. The Crusher ends up hitting King with his famous bolo punch, and the King takes his seat at commentary with his tail between his legs. Not content with how things are going down, Jerry tries again, and this time he removes Mad Dog's prosthetic leg, but again he gets punched out. On the third attempt, the Crusher swings the leg at Lawler and Jerry gets knocked down. The King said this was a terrible waste of pay-per-view time, and I'm sure many would agree, but the fans in the arena seem to enjoy it. The Nation vs D-Generation X is our semi-main event tonight, and there isn't much storyline here really, just some classic faction warfare with two of the more prominent groups the WWF has to offer. DX became fan favourites in the span of a few weeks. Their missions to take down WCW went over really well with fans watching at home, so the degenerates are the good guys tonight. Triple H wants to know if the fans are ready. Road Dogg grabs the mic as usual.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of...
Shut up!
Owen Hart, D'Lo and Kama represent the Nation, while the Outlaws and Triple H represent D-Generation X. If you didn't notice earlier, Owen's got some new ring gear, and while it's become pretty iconic nowadays, it still kinda looks like a default graphic template you'd pick in Creator Wrestler mode. D'Lo gets the better of Road Dogg multiple times to start us off, shoulder block after shoulder block. The real Double J does manage a hip toss and a punch to the face before tagging in B.A. Billy Gunn. Owen comes in and he takes a hard clothesline followed by a big press slam, but he replies with a spinning wheel kick and a back body drop. Gunn avoids a sharpshooter attempt and he tags in Triple H. Hunter performs the Harley Race knee followed by a few mounted punches, and as a side note, you may notice that Hunter's been making a lot of changes to his overall presentation over these past few weeks. Hunter performs a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker, Road Dogg comes in and he delivers a leg drop. Triple H is in once again, but he ends up taking a low blow, so Owen gets a chance to tag out and in comes Kama. DX's leader takes a running corner knee attack, but Triple H replies with his facebreaker knee smash. In comes B.A. Billy Gunn again, and a kick to the midsection puts Billy on the mat. The Nation attack Billy in the heel corner before D'Lo tags in, but D'Lo takes a slingshot followed by a Billy Gunn clothesline. We see some tandem offense from DX when Triple H pulls off a drop toe hold and Road Dogg hits a knee drop. The Degenerates then focus on keeping D'Lo away from his teammates, so we see some quick tags that work very effectively. Even X-Pac gets in on the action. DX's plan kinda falls apart when Road Dogg comes in, D'Lo's able to tag out and Kama gets in the ring, and now the Nation utilise the same strategy as DX. Road Dogg gets kept away from his teammates while Owen, Kama and D'Lo tag in and out. Owen performs a pile driver, a neck breaker and an elbow drop on Road Dogg. That absolute madman D'Lo applies a chin lock before getting to his feet and delivering a sky high, and Owen has a chance to win it with a sharpshooter, but Hunter gets in the ring to break it up. The hot tag comes when D'Lo misses a middle rope attack, but the tag should have come way earlier. The crowd were chanting boring at this point. In comes Billy Gunn, all fired up. Triple H soon follows and the match breaks down with all 6 men fighting in and out of the ring. Chyna gets involved and Mark Henry pulls her down from the apron. The big man takes a back elbow for his troubles. And during the commotion, Billy Gunn and Triple H pull off a spike piledriver on D'Lo on top of the European Championship. The referee isn't there though when D'Lo's shoulders are on the mat, so Owen Hart dashes in and he manages to hit Triple H with a pedigree. Hunter's head smacks the European Championship, and the Nation defeat D-Generation X at Over The Edge. They absolutely lost the audience while building up for the hot tag. Instead of building excitement, they dragged it out way too long, and you could hear fans getting a bit fed up. The match did go on a bit too long, but overall, it wasn't bad. I do think the right team got the victory though, and this means the feuding factions are probably going to continue working together over the next few weeks. Our main event features Stone Cold Steve Austin vs Dude Love, a rematch from Unforgiven last month. Vince McMahon lit a fire within Mick Foley when Foley wasn't named the #1 contender the night after Unforgiven. We thought Foley was going to turn babyface, but McMahon wanted Mick to seize the opportunity once again, and to do so, Mick had to destroy his best friend Terry Funk in a Raw main event match. Foley got named the #1 contender and Foley went corporate. He's got his teeth in and he's wearing suits while cutting promos, so he's been very much open to getting molded into a champion that Vince McMahon can be proud of. Steve Austin, meanwhile, has been raising hell over these past few weeks, from getting arrested to getting Vince McMahon arrested, from taking out the Stooges to making Vince McMahon's job a nightmare every week. Austin's turned it up a few notches in this feud he's got himself into with McMahon, and it's made for some very funny and very entertaining promos and moments on TV. McMahon's appointed Gerald Brisco as the guest timekeeper tonight, Pat Patterson's going to be the guest ring announcer, and McMahon himself's going to referee this main event championship match. To save himself from going to jail though when arrested on Raw, McMahon made a plea bargain. He's going to allow someone to stand at ringside to ensure the match gets called right down the middle, if someone volunteers, that is. Before the match, Vince says he's going to call it fair and square, but if Austin attacks him at any point, then he'll award the championship to Dude Love. He flexes his 24-inch pythons and he makes sure they're looking good as he says the match can only end by his hand. The only way it ends is when McMahon's hand slaps the mat 1, 2, 3, or when Vince points to the timekeeper, Gerald Brisco, to ring the bell. Pat Patterson comes down first. He gives Gerald Brisco quite the introduction. McMahon also gets a very warm welcome from Patterson. Patterson even tells fans to stand up in honour of our special referee, and Jerry Lawler, of course, is first to applaud the boss. Dude Love comes out and he's got his blazer on tonight. He shakes hands with the timekeeper and ring announcer before giving Vince McMahon a big old hug, and then Patterson introduces the WWF champion, a beer-drinking fool, a foul-mouthed punk, a disgrace to every human being alive today, and better yet, Patterson ain't even going to say his name because the champion's nothing more than a bum. Stone Cold needs no introduction though. The Rattlesnake gets the best ovation of the night when he walks down to the ring. The competitors are ready to go, everyone takes their positions. McMahon's about to call for the opening bell, but then there's a loud gong in the arena and the crowd goes nuts. The Undertaker's here, and the Undertaker's volunteered to keep an eye on Vince McMahon tonight in the Over The Edge 98 main event. Through gritted teeth, Vince orders Brisco to ring the bell and the WWF title match gets underway. The boss demands a clean break in the corner and he gets flipped off by the Rattlesnake. Dude Love then tries to steal a victory with a quick pin, and Stone Cold isn't happy with the speed of Mr. McMahon's count. The Undertaker's about to intervene, but he lets it go so the competitors can get back at it. Austin gets taken down with a headlock and McMahon counts the 1 even though Austin's right shoulder's well off the mat. But, give him credit, he makes the right call by counting Foley's shoulders to the mat when Austin performs the same move. A kick to the midsection makes Foley's false teeth fall out and Stone Cold decides to stomp on them. The Dudester didn't like that too much though, so Austin takes a few strikes in the corner as the crowd try to rally behind the WWF champion. Stone Cold fires back with a Luthez press and Dude Love takes a clothesline over the top rope. On the outside though, it's Foley who does the most damage when Stone Cold takes a bump on the ring steps. Vince McMahon goes over to get a closer look, and when he screams at Austin to get back in the ring, The Undertaker begins to slowly approach the boss. Vince gets out of harm's way when Stone Cold gets back inside the ropes, but The Undertaker's eyes remain locked on Mr. McMahon. Foley remains in control when he chokes the champ in the corner before launching him into the opposite corner. Dude Love drops an elbow on the Rattlesnake and you can hear Vince ordering Dude Love to pin his opponent, but Stone Cold keeps kicking out. A swinging neckbreaker brings Austin back into it and the crowd pops. The challenger takes 3 clotheslines before getting brought to the corner, but at the other side of the ring, Dude Love manages to lock in the mandible claw. To break the hold, Austin gets Foley tied up between the top and middle ropes, a spot that Mick Foley knows all too well, but Mick applies another mandible claw when Austin goes to attack. Dude Love falls out of the ring, and again, The Undertaker makes sure that Vince McMahon doesn't interfere. And just as the guys start fighting at the announce table, Pat Patterson announces that this is now a no disqualification match. Vince McMahon's changing the rules as the match goes along. The no DQ rule suits Austin though. He launches Dude Love into the timekeeper's area and Brisco gets wiped out. Stone Cold then lands a ridiculously hard clothesline on Dude Love and the challenger flips over the guardrail. Before getting back in the ring, Austin makes sure to walk all over Jerry Brisco, but back inside the ropes, Austin makes a mistake when he goes for a leapfrog body guillotine. A baseball slide knocks Stone Cold back out of the ring, and Austin forgot to turn his body during a swinging neckbreaker. Pat Patterson announces that this is now a Falls Count Anywhere match, and of course Dude Love tries to pin Austin right away, but Stone Cold stays in it. So far this match has been a whole lot of fun. The two then fight at the entranceway where Austin gets backdropped onto a car and Dude Love takes a flapjack too. Stone Cold then goes for a stunner on top of the car, but Dude Love throws Austin over an old beaten up Mercury as the match continues on. Foley grabs a lead pipe, but his strike's a little weak. A busted open Stone Cold then starts laying in the punches, but his piledriver attempt gets countered with a backdrop. McMahon's now getting frustrated at Steve consistently kicking out. Foley then suplexes Austin before going for his signature diving elbow, but Austin rolls out of the way and the move completely misses. So Austin kicks Foley back down the ringside, and finally the match gets back inside the ropes. Pat Patterson trips Austin up, Austin takes a clothesline, Dude Love exposes a top turnbuckle and Stone Cold's head smashes into the steel. Things go from bad to worse when Pat Patterson hands Dude Love a chair and Stone Cold takes a shot in the midsection and across the back. Then, Austin takes a double arm DDT on the chair. Somehow though, Stone Cold kicks out after all this punishment, and Austin turns it around after getting a boot up in the corner. Stone Cold grabs the chair and every time I see this, it gets me. Stone Cold hits the top rope with the chair, and the chair comes back and smacks him on the head. Anyway, Dude Love takes a ferocious chair shot and McMahon refuses the count. Austin then argues with Vince and he ducks out of the way when Dude Love comes running in swinging the chair. Vince McMahon gets totally wiped out. We see the Stone Cold Stunner on Dude Love and that should be it all over. Mike Chioda tries to make the 3 count but Patterson takes him out. So when Foley applies the claw and Patterson tries to count Austin's shoulders to the mat, The Undertaker grabs the special guest ring announcer and he chokeslams him through a table. The exact same thing happens to Jerry Brisco too. Back in the ring, Austin counters another mandible claw with a stunner, and to end the match, Austin grabs McMahon's hand and he counts the pinfall. A seriously chaotic but seriously fun main event here, and in a way, it completely saved the pay-per-view. Over the Edge 98 was very average, but I had a blast watching this main event. It was so good. The Undertaker and Austin look at each other and there's something there. We don't know if it's respect or something a little more competitive, but I'm sure we'll find out soon. Austin walks over Vince's unconscious body while celebrating his big win. Against all odds, Stone Cold Steve Austin is still WWF Champion. The Dude Love vs Austin match was a lot of fun. Everything else ranged from average to just okay. You expect more when you see on paper DX versus The Nation or The Rock versus Faarooq. Even Steve Blackman versus Jeff Jarrett had a decent build up, but that match was very average too. In saying that, Marc Mero's little moment made me laugh out loud again, and I didn't mind the Kaientai match either. But really, you could skip everything on this show and just watch the main event. So far, I don't think 1998's been great for WWF pay-per-views, even though overall they're doing much better than WCW on the grand scheme of things. But we're only approaching the halfway mark for the year, so let's see if the best is yet to come. I hope you enjoyed this one though, and I hope you got that warm, nostalgic feeling while watching the show. Join me on Thursday for Reliving the War. Thank you very much for watching. Stone Cold's the man, and take care. To our best, Dylan Quill, Dr. Zoidberg, and Magician Respected are getting shoutouts today for signing up to Wrestling Bios on Patreon as Hall of Famers. A big thanks to these guys for signing up at one of the higher levels and supporting me when things get a little shaky on YouTube. Magician Respected can be found on Instagram at Magician Respected, all one word, and add a number 1 on there to look him up on TikTok.